Setting up the camera the way you want is really helpful. It makes the photographing so much easier when you know where everything is and the camera is set the way you want it to be set. Here are my best settings for a OM-5 camera that I have been using. It's a camera from OMDS, so I don't have it yet. I haven't bought it yet, but I'm considering it. Hi, it's Peter here, and let's get right into the business. The settings differ slightly from JPEG and RAW. It depends on which one you use when you're shooting. I prefer RAW, and that's my recommendations for you too. And I will first go over the general settings that will apply to the JPEG and RAW. It's more about the buttons and how you will be shooting. But of course, all these settings are something that I prefer. Some of the things might be different than what you prefer. So I will go through my settings and explain why I use those. I always recommend to use the manual and read that and learn about your camera and set up your camera yourself. But I do have the settings that I'm showing you here for sale, and I will put a link in the description for those who want to go easy and just upload those settings, but more about that later in the video. General settings. First we will set up the dial functions. I mainly use aperture priority and have set up the back wheel to exposure compensation. It is easy to adjust the exposure with my thumb. And then the front dial is for aperture. The same thing is set up for shutter priority, back wheel for exposure compensation and front wheel for shutter speed. F and lever function is set mode 3. It switches between photo and video mode. This is very good feature when I'm using the camera in hybrid situations where I need to shoot video and stills. I only have to switch this and I'll set with video. And what's good about it is when I switch it to 2, it will switch to all the latest video settings that I have used. And then when I go back to position 1, it will have the settings that I used for photos. This is a very, very good feature and helps a lot when you're in hybrid shooting. Without this, I would, need 2 cameras. It's a real big help. From D3, I have set the grid settings, the rule of third. It makes finding the composition faster. There are several other options too. From D4, I have turned off the beeping sound. I don't like the beeping sound. It makes a beep when the focus is done. And, I can see it from the screen that it is done. So no need for the annoying beeping sound that will, draw attention to you. Because usually when you're a photographer, you want to be kind of like invisible and not noticed. And on H1, it's a copyright settings, and I've added my name to it. So it will write the copyright information and the photographer's name in the metadata that's in the file. Of course, you can do this when you import images to, for example, to Lightroom, that you can add a preset that adds that. But I think it's very handy to have it here too. And from special menu I have turned EVF auto switch off. I want to toggle between EVF and LCD with the button because it's annoying when you accidentally move your hand in very close to the EVF and then it will change to LCD and back and forth. I don't like that. And then my menu. This is a new thing in OM1. This wasn't in EM5 Mark III. And this is a good thing. I have set these things to my menu, but this is something that will change when I shoot. And when I need something, I might add it here because I find out that I use something more often than others, then I might add it here. But I usually try to group them so that one has about the image parameters. Some might have the special features, the computational imaging, and one is for video. So I always try to group them, and you have 5 pages and you can add 7 on each. So there is quite a lot of things that you can add. But this is something that you need to figure out yourself. What are the things that you need the most? And let us know in the comments down below what you have added to my menu. I have these like I showed you already. And these were all the general settings that apply to everything. And I don't know if you agree with these. Do you have any other like general settings or default settings that you like to use? Please let us know in the comments down below, because it's always good to learn from others and see what your settings are, because I might learn something from that too. And then let's talk about the JPEG specific settings. And these are the things that you need to change or check. Check out from the shooting menu 1 that you have the best image quality setting for JPEG. It should be LSF. If that is not available, go to special menu G, set the compression to superfine. Then RAW specific settings. And before we start that, I need to say something that is always been a bit of a misunderstanding. These settings that I'm gonna say about RAW settings now won't affect the RAW image itself. it will only affect the LCD and EVF images because they are JPEGs. And what we want with these settings is to make the best possible original, to make the best possible ETTR exposure. That's the reason why we are adjusting these settings on RAW. And I'm saying it won't affect the RAW image itself. It only will show the JPEG on LCD and EVF better so that it's more easier to make the precise exposure when using ETTR. And of course, from shooting menu 1, choose RAW. Like I said, I recommend shooting ETTR, and there's a video about that explains why. Choose muted as your picture mode and set the contrast and saturation to -2. And when shooting RAW and ETTR, it's very good to have the red and blue flag colors on. The way it works that if you see red on your screen, that part of the image will be overexposed. But since the image that you're looking through your EVF or LCD is a JPEG, there is about one stop more. So if you see red and then you go back and the red is gone and go back and then you see a red again, you won't get overexposed images because there is some more room in the highlight area when you're shooting RAW. So bear that in mind. So seeing red is not a big problem. But if the whole image is red, of course, then it's overexposed. From D1, info settings. Go to info and highlight shadow. And then from LVF info, in custom 1 or custom 2, turn on the highlight and shadow. From D1, I have turned off all the, for me, unnecessary picture modes. I only have muted, monochrome and custom on. Check from the menu D2 that all the live boosts are off like this. From histogram settings, I have set highlight to 254 and shadow to 1. This tells when the flag color should appear. And if you see red on your EVF or LCD, you know that that particular part of the image RGB value is more than 254. And 255 is pure white and 0 is black. So if there's blue, you know that it is 0 or less, and it's underexposed. If it's blue and overexposed, is it if it's red. But like I said, the image that you see from the EVF and LCD is a JPEG image, and having a little bit red or blue won't ruin the image because there is one stop of room on each side, on each part of the RGB. So no problem with that. From menu G, I have turned keep warm colors off. And I use Adobe RGB color space. From menu I, info settings, either custom 1 or custom 2, turn on highlight shadow. Save your settings. After you have set up everything the way you want, then I recommend storing them to C1. That is your basic settings. When you put your camera on C1, you know what the settings are. It's for your general photography. And that's what I always do. I have the raw settings on C. And then there is one place you need to check just to make sure. Check from custom mode, save settings, your preferred setting. If it's on reset, the setting will always be the ones that you saved. Hold means that the settings that you change while shooting in custom mode will be saved. So if you change the ISO, for example, it will be saved to that custom setting. I prefer to have it on reset, so the settings will always stay. If I need to have some other settings, then I will put them on C2, on C3 and C4, which can be assigned to a button. And then when you have stored them to C, and maybe C2, C3, and C4 for different scenarios or different genres of photography that you do on different situations. Make a backup for those. You can back up the settings to OI Share app. So you can back up them to your mobile, and you can also upload them from the mobile. So you might have 8 different settings, and then you can upload the settings that you need on that particular shooting scenario or genre. But I haven't used it with OM-5. But on my OM-1, I do have several different settings that I stored in my phone, and then I can upload them to my camera. But I haven't done that with OM-5. I only have the C1 and C2 actually in use, at the moment at least. And you can also store your settings to a computer using OM Workspace. And that is another good thing. I usually have them in both, so I have them in my phone and in the computer, so I can use either one. Usually I use my phone because it's a lot easier and handy, and I can do it anywhere. And then if you want to buy my settings, like I said at the beginning of this video, it's a good thing for you to set up the camera for yourself the way you want it, so that you have the knowledge of where everything is and the camera is totally the way you want it. But if you want, you can buy my settings. I'll put a link in the description to instructions on how to get them and how to use them. There's also the basic settings for OM-1 if you have that camera too. But this link goes to OM-5 page. And here is my video about OM-5, and the other video is best settings for the other cameras. But hey, thanks for watching and bye for now.